Great. So I am here with Dean. Really excited about this. We got connected probably coming up for a year or so ago through some obscure connection of a connection. And that's going to become relevant because one of the things I really want to drill into in this talk is about your insane network and how you've built that and how you continue to deliver great value. But before we get into all of that, do you want to just give a very quick high-level overview of, I guess, your background, but also why we're talking about investment opportunities today?
Yeah, sure. Well, great to be here. Great to be here with you, Callum. And it's been great the last year, just networking and connecting and helping each other, with multiple connections globally. But I met Callum through a friend of mine in Belgium. For those of you who are unfamiliar with, it's a peer group, young presidents organization. And I met this gentleman back in 1994 when I helped launch the Entrepreneurs organization globally. I spent about 20 years there building that into one of the largest peer CEO networks for entrepreneurial leaders. And Robert Benninga was his name, was a member of the board, and we've kept in contact for 25 years. It's kind of been a mentor, networking and connecting and keeping in touch, right? And I suppose one of my principles, just for anything to do with deal sourcing, building relationships, is something called maintain the network, right? There's two kinds of people in this world. There's transactional entrepreneurs and investors, right? And there's holistic, right? And I align with people that have the values of give first and have a holistic approach. And Robert certainly was that way. And for us, we've known each other 25 years. And when I launched my recent company, International Deal Gateway, I asked him to be an advisor to Deal Gateway. And as we were building it, I said, look, I'd like to connect with great people around the world. Long story short, and how Callum and I met was that Robert Benninga's personal coach in New Zealand, Callum knew. So I got chatting with this gentleman in New Zealand. He said, oh, you've got to meet Callum Laing. He's doing some amazing things in entrepreneurship and investing, and he would be just perfect to get involved with your venture. And that was a year ago. And Callum, it's been great. Callum's become one of our international ambassadors for Deal Gateway, and it's just been fantastic, on stuff Callum's been working on. I've tried to dive in and provide connections, and then vice versa. So it's been, and we're not transacting and doing business, but I think there's been value kind of both ways, because we dove in kind of in the spirit of, hey, let's help each other, and like stuff will ultimately come from it. And so thanks, Callum, for being an ambassador in Singapore.
Oh, well, thank you, and I'm very glad that Martin in New Zealand did connect us, because you've been incredibly generous with your network. And normally on these videos, I dive straight into kind of investing opportunities. But one of the things that I've talked about in the past that makes it hard for the average investor is they just don't have a great network. So the best investment opportunities often come through almost always come through your network. They don't come through being posted on LinkedIn or Angel Gate.
No, I agree.
It's behind the scenes, and you only get the deals because people trust you. Now, I wrote a book about this, Progressive Partnerships, which if anyone signs up for the complete package, yes, they get a free copy of that. I started building my network consciously, probably about 15 years ago, and really thinking, okay, how do I create value to people so that people want to be in my network? But I am still a rank amateur compared to you, Dean. I mean, your network, you're constantly connecting people. What are some simple tips if an investor's sitting here thinking, I want to get access to those? What are some simple tips that you can give to get started on building that network that perhaps people aren't familiar with?
Well, I mean, that's a great thing. I mean, first, I would say just have the mentality of give first, right? And I mean, that's always kind of been my mentality. You know, I spent 20 years building the Entrepreneurs Organization, 4 year stint building YPO and now Deal Gateway. And I just had this mentality. Anybody that I met, I would just think, okay, how can I help them? How can I give first? Brad Feld, one of my good mentors, co-founder of Techstars. Techstars has created 14 billion in shareholder value. He's probably one of the most successful investors on the planet, and that's his philosophy: give first. And I remember chatting with him, right, because he's got everybody wanting to get at him for deal flow and this, that, and the other. And he said, why don't you study up on what some of my passions are, right? And one of his passions is mental health, right? He's very open about that in his blog, that he's suffered from depression. And him and I, we've known each other 30 years, but that was an opportunity for me to come alongside him and get to know him and support him in one of his initiatives. And what's resulted in that? Lots. Right? You know, he's a supporter of the Gateway, right? And we've done many, many projects. So for the average investor, just some thought processes. I would say, so how do you give first? Maybe you could volunteer your time to be an advisor at a local university, right? So maybe you've got whatever, a domain expertise in strategy or doing business in Asia. There's an abundance of deal flow coming out of universities.
Yep.
And the research arms at universities. And one of the gaps there is that, and the stats that are out there, is that universities have an incredibly difficult time in commercializing those. So just an idea for your investors in the spirit of give first, why don't you connect with a local university and maybe the Student Entrepreneur Club, volunteer to be a speaker, you know, and just get yourself in the flow of meeting those great entrepreneurial companies, but in the spirit of give first, like not going there, I want to join that university entrepreneurship club or community organization because I'm going to find deal flow. Go with the mentality of give first. So there's a great book I highly recommend for any investor to read, and he was one of my mentors, Harvey McCay, Swim with the Sharks Without Being Eaten Alive. I just highly, highly recommend that. So for the investor, if you're looking to network with entrepreneurs, this, that, and the other, what the McCay said is that do your homework. Like actually do your homework and study up on that entrepreneur, right? And Harvey McCay came up with this thing called the McCay 66. Do you know 66 different facts on that particular investor? And I've used that technique for 30 years, right? I've probably got 100 facts on you, buddy. Yeah. Yeah, but hear me out, right? Everybody's looking for the next great invention, right? Or the next great trend, right? And what makes Elon Musk great? He's constantly introducing new patterns of thinking into his brain, right? And when you do that, right, that's where new ideas and new thoughts for investment come from, right? If you isolate yourself, it's just you're not going to hope to do that. So I just recommend, get out there in your local community, like you join. You just research it. There's probably an angel club, venture capital club, something to do with the university where you could mentor students and just get in that flow of that ecosystem, right? And so, sorry. Yeah.
No, perfect. And let me just expand on that, because I think the other challenge that people have is when they know knowledge, they assume everyone else knows that knowledge. So if you're an investor and you see entrepreneurs pitching to you, or students or PhDs that have got great technology but have no idea how to not only commercialize it, but how to articulate the value, and you sit there as an investor and go, well, this is obvious. Yeah, talk to me in terms of what I'm listening to. rather than just dismissing them as being idiots because they're not doing that, exactly your point. If you can go and start teaching, if you become a resource for entrepreneurs, let me teach you how to pitch to investors in a way that we want to hear. You will have deal flow coming to you left, right, and center.
No,
Uh,
I would agree with that. And just like each of us is, even as an investor, we're our own personal brand, right? And I often, I was sharing this with my young nephew, right? He wants to be an entrepreneur and do some investing. And I said, look, get your LinkedIn profile and start writing some thought leadership in articles. Like go interview some entrepreneurs. I mean, investors come in all size and shapes and forms, right? And just being, that's what I recommend. Write about what you're passionate about, right? Maybe you're passionate about, biotech or medicine or autonomous vehicles, right? Just start writing about that. Brad Feld, I mentioned him. I just love his philosophy for investment. He studies and he builds a hypothesis, and that hypothesis is 20 years out, right? And so one of his hypotheses is around human-centric kind of innovation wearable devices. So he's built that hypothesis, and then he does everything he can to build network effect around that hypothesis. So, recruiting advisors, writing blogs, whatever it is, and then the deal flow kind of comes to him, right, in that space, because he's known as kind of the guy in that particular kind of sector. So I think there's something in that, and he's actually proven that out. Boulder, Colorado, where he lives, has the highest concentration of startups in the world.
Really?
Right? And it is. And he went there 25 years ago, and he set a 20-year vision, right? He wrote a book on it. Highly recommend the book, Entrepreneurship, Ecosystems, and just everything they did to deal flow, investment, right? There's another great resource I highly recommend that your audience follows, and he's one of my best friends, Yoshito Hori, Globus Capital, number one venture capitalist in Japan. He owns the largest management school, and similar philosophy to Brad, like begin with the end in mind, right? So he looks out 20 years, and he was involved, in the beginning on helping cultivate and create that entrepreneurial ecosystem. And one of his philosophies was, I'm going to go build a management school, right? Much like Stanford. Stanford had the companies coming out, then you had the venture capital, and then the people. So knowledge, right? The people and capital, right? And so that's Yoshi's philosophy for how to create ecosystem and deal flow there, and he's done incredibly well.
Yeah,
Right?
I think that the point there as well is it's get very clear on that, but also get very clear on what you're not going to get, what you're not going to look at, what you say no to, who you say no to, because
I would
otherwise
agree.
yeah, totally. So look, let's move on to Deal Gateway. So you've created this incredible platform. It's a way of solving a problem that investors have about getting access to the best deals. Where did that come from, and what's your goals with it, and how do people get involved with it?
Yeah, for sure, Callum. And I'll just a quote that I wanted to leave you guys with. You have a strategy if you know what you won't do, right? In your mind, boom.
Yeah.
So look, IDG, where it comes from. So I spent 25 years building peer networks, Entrepreneurs Organization, MYPL. Collectively, those two organizations represent about 13% of the global economy. So pretty substantial. And so, I did that. It was a labor of love. I absolutely loved it. Why did I do it for so long? Because in my mind, when you're helping entrepreneurs connect and grow, that's good for the world, right? Entrepreneurship, it's an international language. And you can be in Singapore or Victoria, British Columbia, similar challenges as entrepreneurs, same within Japan. So getting to your point, I reached a point, after 24 years where I said, I'm on LinkedIn, And yeah, I'm happy to pay the monthly premium membership fee, but I'm not getting a whole heck of a lot of value out of that, right? And to be, nothing against LinkedIn, okay, I keep growing my LinkedIn connections, 25,000, I post some articles, get a lot of view, but actual tangible value and just chatting with entrepreneurs and investors, it was just, like a Bermuda Triangle. And so, Deal Gateway, I suppose, was born out of that. There's got to be a more efficient way in a gated community to connect entrepreneurs, investors, so that's family offices, institutions, with some of the leading entrepreneurs in the world. Essentially, from my network initially, and we've built out from there globally. So, that was kind of, I think, the problem that we were solving. We launched it 18 months ago, over 6,000 members. Probably this month, we're just shy of that right now. By the time this airs in May, we'll be well on our way to 10,000. There's about approximately $1 trillion net investable assets on the platform. But what we're trying to do, we're creating this gated community where entrepreneurs who have businesses that they're raising capital for at all levels, right? And these are a variety of different businesses, leading life sciences companies, real estate companies, leading mining and resource companies from Canada. We've got a partnership with the Toronto Stock Exchange, the full gambit, and they can post in a confidential manner. And on the other side of the marketplace, investors, high net worth investors from over 100 companies, 100 countries can connect and interact on the platform and learn more about the company. We also, as well as doing kind of the online marketplace, we do curated offline deal events with, we create kind of a pool of our leading investors with a minimum net worth, and we curate the best companies and have a live physical event where they connect and interact. And then the last thing, and we've been doing virtual events for 18 months. We do these virtual deal huddles where entrepreneurs can come on and be able to present their companies virtually and connect and interact with fellow entrepreneurs and investors and immediately get needs, leads, connections to help accelerate their businesses. So, yeah, I mean, it's going in the right direction. I like the fact that it's virtual. I like the fact that it gives investors a lens into quality deals all over the world. Maybe you have some investors that are watching here and they want to look at deals coming out of Silicon Valley. Well, we've had those. Some of the leading venture capitalists in Silicon Valley have opened up some of their fund for Deal Gateway investors and members to invest in. So hopefully that answers it, Callum.
Yeah, no, it does, and look, it's been a very, very valuable resource for me, both as a business owner and also as an investor, and I really like the way that you have curated it. You have kept the quality of the deals very high. But yeah, I definitely encourage anyone listening now. Deal Gateway has been a great supporter of this event, and so click on the links, go and check it out. Yeah, some really great stuff there, and an incredibly powerful network to tap into as well. So let's get onto the investing side. I know you do your own investments. Clearly, Deal Gateway is a very valuable tool to see what's happening. What are some of the areas that are really exciting you at the moment that kind of get your juices flowing and really want to sort of share those best opportunities? What's exciting you?
So I live in Canada, but lived around the world. One of the things that I think should be on people's horizon, you've had the cannabis craze here in Canada. 2-3 years ago, where you'd have companies trading at 20 billion kind of market cap. I mean, we federally regulated and this, that, and the other. The cannabis sectors has come off. Recently, I think it's come back a bit, but I do think anything to do with plant-based type companies. I've studied kind of the mushrooms, They're one of the most successful companies on the gateway, a mushroom biotech company out of Australia, which has got patents around honeybee immunity, animal immunity. I think they've actually even created a mushroom burger and a few other different things. So I think that that's kind of interesting to me. The other big area that there is just a ton of capital and deal flow in, certainly in North America, just speaking from a North American perspective, Mexico, US, and Canada, is esports. In e-gaming, there is a lot of capital flowing around in that regard. You've seen a couple companies go public in Canada, so definitely that. The other tried and true investments in US and Canada is real estate. So on the gateway, you've got some of the most successful real estate investors and operators, and we've seen just quality, stable kind of deal flow. Being in Canada, I would be remiss if I didn't share with you our Toronto Stock Exchange. And we've got a partner with the Toronto Stock Exchange. And for your investors, you may not be familiar with the Canadian public markets, but there's some exciting opportunities there through the Toronto Venture Exchange. And it was I think it was the probably most viewed deal on Deal Gateway, a capital pool company concept where you can have an opportunity to invest directly in that and be involved in a public entity. So yeah.
You're right. I mean, that did get a lot of attention, and I know you posted about it on LinkedIn, and it got a huge amount of attention as well. And it is a structure that the Canadian exchange, the Toronto Exchange, offers. Do you want to just go into that in a little bit more depth, just so that people can understand what that is? Because I think it is.
For sure. And by no means I'm an expert, but so in Canada, you've got two exchanges. You've got the Toronto Stock Exchange, which is the big board for higher market caps, and then you've got the Toronto Venture Exchange. And the Toronto Venture Exchange, that's earlier stage companies, predominantly mining and resources, but we had the first cannabis company to go public there, the first blockchain company. And so the exchange has created two mechanisms to be able to take a company public and then open it up to investors. So it's called a capital pool company. Generally, the requirements are having three directors, and then you get a broker, and you have at least $500,000 in capital in that account through 200 investors. So there's opportunities to invest directly into that capital pool company. And then that capital pool company goes and looks for a private company, what's called a qualifying transaction, right? And if the exchange approves it, the money's invested in the company, and then that company goes public, and then they can raise further rounds of capital. So it's if there's people watching and they've got companies and they want to look at maybe going public in Canada, I know the Toronto Stock Exchange has a big push to attract international listings. So that's a way, and I'm just trying to think. There was a company, capital pool company, that found an esports company, and so it's not limited to North American companies. These capital pool companies can do qualifying transactions all over the world, and to get access to that deal flow, there was 2 CPC companies that were posted on the platform by some pretty experienced operators. So I mean, that's one of the quick ways to get tied into that deal flow, just directly connecting to them.
Yeah, so this is what I mean, look, the subheading of my latest book and the whole concept behind this is connecting sophisticated capital with talented small businesses. And it's anywhere that we see any creativity or innovation that helps to take the capital and put it into the hands of the people that can create the value, I'm a huge fan of. So I was really interested to see that. It looks like a really interesting concept, and I think it also, because I think the ticket size was relatively small to get in, because it was kind of a volume of small tickets. So a nice kind of low risk starter way for companies to for investors to start to play in this space. So yeah, really interesting. Thanks for that, and a great example of the kind of stuff that comes across your platform. So look, I'm conscious of your time. I know it's late in the day there, and you've had a long day. But just I guess kind of wrapping up, you've had through the access to the networks that you've had for the past 25 years, you've seen a lot of opportunities. You've been involved in a lot of opportunities. What would be kind of like one key takeaway that you could give to investors in terms of getting involved and getting good returns?
Getting involved in getting good returns. Well, you got to bet on the team, right? You know, the people.
Mm-hmm.
You have to, right? And I think, yeah, I mean, you've got to bet on the team and their track record, what they've done before, right? And then I think you've got to have a certain criteria that you actually write down to evaluate investments. I was on the phone today with one of our Gateway members who's raising capital for the first time, startup. And I said, look, there's a few different things that investors look at. Product market fit, right? Have you actually gone out and chatted with at least 100 customers to validate product market fit? And then what's the team? What's your track record? Who have you got around you, right? I think, probably one of the most successful seed investors in the world. He's one of our Gateway members, Jeff Pomeranz, in Silicon Valley. I think they've deployed capital into about 1,500 companies, seed companies. And he's the number one performing seed investor in the world. And I just encourage anybody to kind of follow some of those more, I'm just talking out loud, just follow some of those more successful kind of investors and just what they write and how they go about evaluating, right? Like as an investor, I guess, so I'm kind of going on a bit, but, not one tip, but as an investor, I think you've got to be a continual learner, right? Like what you thought about yesterday and the construct that you built, yesterday to look at different deals, may not be what's gonna take you to the next level. So study from the best, right? So that's my thoughts, bud.
It's awesome, and look, I think you've given so much value today. I think there's so much cool stuff here around looking at holistic, not transactional, giving value, and I think really, giving value. Entrepreneurs by nature, we have to create value for others. Investors don't always think like that, and I think it's a fantastic opportunity to position yourself as an entrepreneurial investor that goes out and creates value and constantly gets the rewards for that. So awesome stuff. Really great to have been connected to you, to be on the platform. Strongly encourage you, those that are watching, to connect with Dean on the platform, get involved, and have a fantastic next decade of investing. It's going to be fun.
Awesome. Thanks, Callum, and great job on everything you guys are doing. Thanks, bud.
Cheers.